It's time to get practical, beyond the hype, and get stuff done. I'm going to cover three top challenges that face every organization today, which cannot be ignored, and in 2018 will need to be addressed. My name is Todd DeCapua. I wanted to go ahead and share this discussion with you, which I first had the opportunity to present to my peers. We were the 15 top performance engineers in the world got together at something called the Performance Advisory Council. So as we think about it's time to get practical, time to get beyond the hype, time to get some stuff done, I wanted to go ahead and pull up this quick Venn diagram and gain some alignment. So as you've probably thought about these types of things before, again, the way that I normally think about the world is through performance, security, and functionality, focusing on results. For this conversation, we're going to be focusing on performance and being able to get stuff done. So from an agenda perspective, here's some points that I've laid out. As you can see, starting off with, I am sick of the hype. So the three top challenges for 2018 that we will be covering today, I feel like a lot of organizations, a lot of other firms, and um, you know others in the industry have really just hyped this up. So I think it's time that we get beyond the hype. We talk about these challenges, and I want to share some of the experiences that I've had and the opportunity in actually doing these things. And not just in the last year, but these are things that throughout my career, across hundreds of organizations, I've had the opportunity to work in and be able to write about, research, and speak about recently as well. So we're going to take a look at each of these three top challenges for 2018, starting off with big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, then covering blockchain, and lastly with the Internet of Things. We will be taking a closer look at each one of these, and the way that I've structured the conversation is we'll start off with an introduction, then we'll go into a deep dive, and then focusing on the future and some of the how-tos from a very practical perspective, and really getting you thinking about the right questions to ask and to reflect on, not only in your organization but in your career as you move forward in the coming year and years. Then we'll wrap up with a quick summary, talk about some takeaways, and look at some next steps and timing. So the second topic, as I think about these three challenges for 2018, is around blockchain. Blockchain, again, many people have many different ideas of what it is or what it is not. Again, many people immediately go to cryptocurrencies, things like Bitcoin, and how big and scary they can be. Um, but as I think about blockchain, it's a little bit different. Some of the older technologies that some of us have had an opportunity to work on, things like EDI or the electronic data interchange, that's more of what I start thinking about when I think of blockchain. So again, as I work with some of the more seasoned professionals in the workspace, I talk to them about EDI, get them comfortable in understanding that. I had the opportunity to work with very early in 99, 2000, I guess, the largest EDI installation in the world, which was with the DuPont Chemical Company. They had originally created this EDI for paints. Beyond that, it just started exploding and became its own business unto itself. But again, I want to think about blockchain from that perspective. So as we get into this introduction of what is blockchain, you can see the definition here. Also to the right is a little bit more from an illustration perspective, a little iconography to help illustrate it, to help understand where blockchain can be used from a variety of different applications. But again, thinking through that, what is blockchain? It's a digitized, decentralized public ledger of all cryptocurrency transactions, constantly growing as completed blocks are recorded and added to it in chronological order, allowing the market to participate to keep track of these digital currency transactions without a central record keeping, or each of these nodes, so this computer being connected to the network gets a copy of the blockchain, which is downloaded automatically. So as I've seen some of the illustrations. I've had the opportunity to work in a few of these. As you think about something, maybe not so simple, but a simple example for many people is in purchasing a home. You have things like the title for that home or the deed, and where is that recorded, and who is the prior owner, and you know how is it that from a loan perspective things are getting processed at the bank based on a sales price, based on who's actually making the purchase, what are their credit scores, all of those kind of moving parts or independent elements which have to come together, which, oh, by the way, today, you and I pay a fair amount of money for each one of those components that I just spoke through. Each one takes a fair amount of time, might be hours, might be days, or longer to go ahead and process. But in this scenario that I just went through, this definition of what is a blockchain, imagine having all of those components connected together. Now it becomes a much less expensive and a much faster process, which is typically going to be free of errors. So again, that's the value of something like blockchain. As we look to the right hand side of the screen, what is blockchain? You can see a little bit more in this illustration. You can see how does it work. Looking at some of this mining math, we talk about block N. This is where some of the different nodes will come into play. But computers being able to bundle these transactions into a new transaction block and then making them available within that specific node. Some of the areas that you can see this has and will continue to be used all the way to the right here on this slide. Blockchain uses are being explored today, irrespective of the use of Bitcoin. So again, kind of push Bitcoin to the side, but think about things like smart contracts. So this might be what I just spoke about with real estate. Stock exchanges. Again, what if you had a digital trading platform that, again, a share of stock is what you are transacting as it changes hands, as it changes values. Again, all of that being kind of controlled or at least tracked through blockchain. And again, you can see all the other examples here, but very relevant and timely. I think really focusing on what is that business case and what is the value to your end user or the customer first, and then you can see the value to the business. But let's look for those business cases. Let's look for where it makes sense and it's reasonable to do some exploratory work around blockchain. I think that's really where we want to get started. As we go into the deep dive here, I wanted to share a few thoughts. And again, you can see there's 6 bullets here. Do you have a line of sight? And what I mean is, as you think about that smart contract that we just spoke about with real estate, you know, do you have the ability to see all of those necessary pieces? So do you see the credit score? Do you see where the deed is? Do you see where the loan is? You know, how do you do that today? How could you do that in the future? So again, having that line of sight, or at least asking that reflective question, how could you get line of sight to those elements? What are all the elements? Again, depending on your business case that you're looking at, what are all those elements that you would need to get access to? How would you do that? What if you could do that? Who's that going to value? Who's that going to benefit? Who is in your blockchain? So again, we talk about this concept of nodes, private nodes, public nodes. You also have the ability to control who accesses what data within the node specifically. So again, there's controls in place to be able to control these aspects as well. But who is in your blockchain? Who do you want to have in your blockchain? How is it that you could influence or direct that as you're kind of building out this initial business case? What is your blockchain business case? Is it speed? Is it time to market? Is it cost savings? Is it competitive advantage? Is it an additional revenue opportunity? Is it a defensive position so that other people don't move in and take pieces of your business away? Because again, what you've done is very specific to an existing business case and a value proposition to your customers. But what is your blockchain business case. Let's figure that out before we build all this technology and spend all this time and money and effort to do it. Let's really focus on the business case, understand what is the blockchain business case for you. Do we know the protocols? Again, this becomes another big question mark from a technology perspective. What are all the protocols that are out there today? What are all the platforms that are out there to get today? You know, again, when they change, how can we react quickly? How can we adapt to those new technologies? Again, focusing on our blockchain business case. How different is this from EDI? Again, the electronic data interchanges, building these trusted partnerships and relationships across vendors through a variety of technologies to enable simple and fast electronic transactions. Again, very simple example of the way the DuPont chemical company used it for paints is from a just-in-time perspective. They wanted the paint showing up at the plant that was going to be applying the paint color to the cars when it needed to be there. Again, not sitting in storage, but again, that relationship with all the different manufacturers and suppliers within the entire supply chain so that that paint showed up to the factory at the right time to be applied to the vehicle. But again, how different is that from EDI? It's a good thing to think about. As we look into the future and some of the how-tos around blockchain, again, you can see this illustration on the left-hand side. This is all from Gartner. Um, and Gartner had quoted this top 10 strategic technology trends for 2018. Blockchain is a powerful tool for digital business because of its ability to remove business and technology friction, enable native asset creation and distribution, as well as providing a managed trust model. Again, you can see the link to that report available to you right at the bottom there. Again, I suggest you click it and read it if you're interested in learning more. The illustration above represents kind of the left-hand side of the blockchain ledger and what that means. On the right-hand side, you can see some of the extended characteristics of a blockchain ledger, and then below are some of the solution sets around blockchain that you will see and read about. Ethereum, again, being one of the leading platforms, as well as some of the other technical solutions available underneath as well. On the right hand side was some very interesting research that I had found. Highly recommend clicking on it and reading a bit more. You can see this was research done by Matthias Scherer, where he kind of defines his business case, outlines some workflows. He talks about public versus permissioned blockchain to help you understand a little bit more there. But again, this was part of, I believe, his PhD dissertation. But again, it was something I found very insightful, and I think you will also. So again, please click on that research and you can learn a little bit more. As I was doing additional research and reading, I also came across this from the Agile Testing Alliance Global Testing Retreat from 2017, which again, you can see the slide share at the top with the link if you wanted to learn more. And this was really specific to blockchain-based testing. And you can see they've kind of outlined it in the 4 different flows from left to right here, starting with transactions and then going to blockchain underpinnings, and then looking at specific blockchain frameworks and platforms, and then the blockchain solutions and providers. So again, visually, something that when I first saw it took a little while for me to wrap my head around, but when I started to understand it, I said, "Wow, this is pretty compelling and interesting," and I think something that would help to illustrate as well as be a great talking to help people understand a little bit more that from an agile testing perspective, here's some thoughts about blockchain and some touch points that are going to be very relevant to this conversation, not only now but into the future as well. We've spoken a lot about the network. There's a lot of different ways that you can recreate the network. Um, one of the other ways that people do this in pre-production environments are through appliances. Um, so Apposite Technologies, you can see the URL here on this slide. but they've got a number of different ways to help you to be able to recreate these network conditions. As you can see, these advanced emulators for very complex network topologies is what Apposite Technologies does. You can see all the different bits here as far as the 15 separate profiles per emulation engine, being able to handle multiple independent emulation engines, being able to recreate a variety of different speeds of links. Um, Actually, I know that they're working on even faster links right now. Advanced link modeling, enabling paths to emulate bandwidth, delays, and jitter, as well as loss. Also being able to bring in QoS as well as background utilization of the network. So again, a lot of different elements here, but as you've heard me talk about big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, blockchain, IoT, all of these big challenges that we're all facing here in 2018, the network plays a fairly significant role. And as you think about building and overcoming these challenges, you really need to consider, how am I doing this? So again, wanted to just introduce Apposite Technologies, tell you about their capabilities. You can go out and understand a little bit more about the value. But with all three of the challenges that we've spoken about for 2018, the network plays a critical role. It's absolutely something that you need to think about. So from a summary and takeaway perspective, I'm interested in continuing a conversation. I know that the 15 of us that were in Scotland together are continuing this discussion. You will see me on social media quite active there, and I do know that we're going to have a number of blogs coming out covering this topic as well as many others that we covered within our Performance Advisory Council. So I would encourage you to stay tuned for that. There's also some other resources that I wanted to make you aware of and make available to you. There's a few different ways that you can do that. So again, here's my email address on my Gmail, which is appperfeng@gmail.com. Also, my Twitter handle is @appperfeng. And then lastly, if you go to Effective Performance Engineering, Shane Evans and I had the opportunity to co-author a book titled Effective Performance Engineering with O'Reilly. It was published in June of 2016. And O'Reilly has given us the opportunity to provide copies of this electronically for free in 3 different electronic versions. So again, if you go to effectiveperformanceengineering.com, simply click on Get the Book, click on the O'Reilly link, and you'll be able to download it in any one of 3 electronic formats for absolute free to be able to read through that book and understand some additional concepts related to effective performance engineering. So again, as we've reviewed these 3 challenges for 2018, starting off with big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, then moving into the fun of blockchain and what it means and some really critical elements to think about, and then finishing off with the Internet of Things or IoT and all the opportunities that I think exist there. All 3 of these are very exciting topics for myself, as I'm sure they are for you as well. And my big goal here is to really just put these ideas out here, put some of my learnings and experience out there so that you might be able to pick up on a few of them, learn from them, and then also share with others. Again, my name is Todd DiCaprio. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share this with you tonight, and hopefully have an opportunity to review it. Let me know what you think. Give me the feedback out on Twitter, or if you want to drop me an email, that's there as well. Thanks again. Bye.